Alright, sorry guys, I'm running a little late today. Let's take a look at our trade plan here. So we had literally the exact same trade plan as yesterday. I quite literally just copy and pasted the trade plan from yesterday last night because that's exactly what I would have said for today. Again, because we are just continuing that micro pullback structure from yesterday. So we have that P shape of Monday that built up the micro pullback of yesterday. And now we have kind of a micro pullback where it's still an inside profile trading within that range of that P-shaped value. But it's more of a kind of a trend profile, right? It's not that bell curve. It's more of a kind of one-directional profile, even though technically the price action is two-directional. You still are showing that thin profile that is typically seen in a one-directional market. We have that multiple node structure pushing to the upside and being protected by the buyers. So same trade plan as yesterday. If it maintains inside of that P-shaped value, then we are looking for that rotation. So below 7,000, it rotates back to 55. Below 55, it goes to 86. And then 55 again, 855. If it holds above 7,000, we look for that breakout into 17, and then that breakout into the extension, which is around 47. So the only real change here from the trade plan of yesterday is instead of a D-shaped profile here, it's kind of more of a multi-node, one-directional profile. Okay, is it the same story on NASDAQ? I believe it is. Yep, same story. Still kind of in that micro pullback, but it is a bit more one-directional. Holding above 425, look for the breakout target 600, 944. Below 425, you are rotating back to 162, possibly 25,000, possibly 807 if it gets really bad. Okay, looks like we didn't miss too much right out of the gate. A little bit choppy, failing to put in that higher value. Keep an eye on VWAP if it does continue to come down here. Buyers getting absorbed on that push up. What's today, the 11th? Keep it on VWAP. Like I said, it's kind of a look above and fail. We tried for higher value. It got absorbed. They swept it. Now they're trying for lower value. Seeing if they can get back into that multi-day micro pullback structure. Very obvious point of origin down here around the 70s. So when I mark out these point of origins, that's a really good example of what I look for. Is you look for where these impulses are just going crazy, and you find the origin of that impulse. And then it's not like an exact science. I used to try to be very exact with it. Nowadays, I don't really care. I just draw kind of a zone around those candles. So like, for example, if this turned into a really strong impulse, I would just take like where these wicks are, and I would grab that candle. I don't try to be too fancy with it anymore. Trading is really not that exact most of the time. Everything is usually more of a zone anyway. And when I do it this way, it takes me 30 seconds, right? I can find all the levels, 30 seconds, and go about my day. And you've seen on stream, day in, day out, these levels are respected beautifully, even though I'm not being very exact, right? You don't have to be like picture perfect with everything in your trading. Did I post the trade plan? Let me see. I did. Sorry, let me post it in chat here. Keep it on VWAP, coming up at 327 and 86. Not a great open for the buyers when they immediately try to push for a high after a really good candle, by the way, which I think this is a news candle. I'll take a look at the data here in a second. But they tried to push for a high. They built a very strong node, and then obviously we're trading down here, so they are getting trapped. What was that data that came out today? Let's see here. It was average hourly earnings 0.4% over 0.3, higher than expected. Non-farm employment 130 over 66K, so much higher than expected. Unemployment rate 4.3 over 4.4, lower than expected. So employment numbers are very good. That is why it did that. So earnings are higher, employment went up, and unemployment went down. Now, how did that impact the rate cuts? Let's take a look. It actually changed it quite a bit. So yesterday, there was a 20% chance of a rate cut on the next meeting, which is 35 days away, so we still have plenty of time. Now there is a 6% chance of a rate cut. So that dramatically changed the likelihood of a rate cut. A lot of sellers at 97 and 95. Good morning, everybody. One ordinary Tachi, Nitro, Ram, Jose. Let me pin the trade plan for you guys. There you go. Future Kin, Julio, Roman, Adam, AT, Lulu, Igor, Greg, Orion, Timothy, Banana. Good morning, Larry, Adriana. Jack, Tamer. Good morning, Trevor, Angelo, Fernando, Brian, Ike, Morris, Scott. Good morning, Ollie. Crab, Ram, Harley. Good morning, Mario, Ryder. Good morning, Darius, Rich. Scooby, DMG, Suzanne. Good morning, Sam. Good morning, Bailey. Good morning, Chuck, Sergio, Garage, Alex, and Optic. Appreciate you guys being here. Good morning, everybody else. If you guys are just tuning in, listening in, appreciate you guys hanging out. Keep an eye on VWAP at 87. If you do fail this daily VWAP backtest, if you fail the 24 EMA backtest, the 8 EMA, basically just short-term downtrend here, pushing you into VWAP. Becoming a bit bottom heavy on this candle after trapping the buyers on the high. This is the problem with those micro pullback structures is you try to break out of them, and it basically just acts like a magnet, just keeps pulling you back down. You can see the overlapping POCs just pulling us right back in. With any rotation, you take it the same way. So you look for the value low of today, possibly the value low of the prior day, possibly the overnight low. All those extreme levels, right? So we have like here, here, and here. Around 150 to 270. Five-minute holding on to the trail. It bounced off it 3 or 4 times before that impulse up. 30 minutes still looking a little sloppy. A bunch of pivots on the high holding us back. Daily still in that possible lower high kind of rollover structure. Also sitting on that 5-minute trail here on ES. Same thing, held onto the trail beautifully, bounced off of it. Not too bad. How's the stock market looking? Pretty green on tech. Pretty red on tech services, so mostly like software stuff. Manufacturing doing really good, probably with the data that came out today. Yeah, I believe I talk about that in some of the micro pullback videos, probably the shorts when I talk about the micro pullbacks. But because you're so inclined to sell the value high breakouts and buy the value low breakouts, it creates an environment where you can look for like those tweezer patterns, the overlapping wicks. I think I talked about in the supply and demand videos, overlapping wicks video. But you have like the overlapping wick structure where it's basically failing and then coming back in, which basically turns into a sweep anyway. Yeah, a lot of overlapping wicks outside of the value area that kind of pull it back in. Yeah, Rich, I hear that, man. It can be a very lonely and boring kind of job or career, whatever you want to call it. Good morning, Scott. Good morning, Agro. More niche. Let me see what you said here, TV. When you use volume, time, and price, by the way, keep an eye on VWAP here. What volume do you use? The regular volume, volume profile, or CVD volume for confirmation? When you use volume, time, and price. Oh, you mean TPO? I'm guessing. Do I use regular volume, volume profile, or CVD volume? Not sure exactly what you're asking, to be honest. Right now, if you're referring to the TPO, I have the TPO next to a regular volume profile that is set to a cash profile. But I'm not sure if that's what you were asking. Yeah, Sergio, I talk about that. By the way, bouncing off VWAP here. I talk about that in my volume profile series with the D-shaped profiles and how Dalton talks about this a lot in his book as well, especially the Mind Over Markets book. And what we're talking about is when you're in a D-shaped bell curve market and you're approaching the value high or approaching the value low, psychologically, it is extremely hard to counter trade that because normally the rotation is pretty strong. Like you're pushing very aggressively into that value high area. But if you look at it as like at a statistical point of view, the bell curve is holding the vast majority of the time. The majority of the time, it is going to fail the value high breakout. It is going to fail the value low breakout, as we've seen the past 3 days. So you just have to remind yourself that if you're taking the trade that is statistically better, that you have a higher chance of winning, it is maintaining that rotation. Now, obviously, you don't just want to blindly take it. Now, a lot of people do. A lot of people do just put their limits on the value high or limits on the value low. I'm not a big limit trader in that regard. I like to wait for confirmation, which I talk about in my series. Whether that be like overlapping wicks or sweeps or delta absorption, yada, yada, yada. Today is a great example. You tried to break that value high. It turned into a sweep. It turned into an absorption. So not only were you selling the value high, you were also just taking a good trade by selling the sweep and the absorption. You really have to see a clear break of balance when you are trading these breaks. For example, it would have to stay above 7,000, build a node there, respect that node by bouncing off of it, creating a higher node, etc. So you'd have to see like a very clear. Here's a VWAP by the way to the tick. You'd have to see a very clear break of balance. It can't be up for debate. You should be able to look at it and immediately say, okay, we are breaking balance. Like it's very obviously building value outside of this zone that it's been stuck in for 3 days. Because you're basically telling yourself that you are trading perfectly and you are trading, let me pull this up here. If you're trying to trade this breakout here and you're buying above 7K, you're basically saying that you're perfect and this is the time. Every other time it failed. Every single time it tried to break above 7K, it failed. But now you're buying it above 7K because you think that it's a perfect trade and it's going to be the time that it breaks out. But that was not true every other time that it did this. So statistically, your trade is not very good. It's the same thing that I constantly harp on, especially in the afternoon in the Discord, when I'm pretty much just a broken record and I say the same thing over and over again about how the 5-minute highs and lows are being protected, the 30-minute highs and lows are being protected, whatever it may be. Because typically in the afternoon, the trend is almost always the same. It picks one side of the candle structure to protect and it protects that side damn near the entire afternoon. So it's like if I see that the 30-minute lows are being protected the entire afternoon, the 5-minute lows are being protected the entire afternoon, if I'm taking a sell order and I just saw that all the lows are being protected, I'm basically telling myself that for this trade to work, I need it to break the structure, the pattern that it's had for the past few hours. Now, those trades can be very profitable, obviously, because the market's not always perfect. It's not always going to stay in the same direction at all times. It obviously has to flip direction. So if you can capitalize, if you can get good at finding that moment that it does in fact break that pattern that it's been in all day, then you can make pretty good money, right? So you need to figure out what you're doing. Are you trying to follow the pattern that has been there for however long? Or are you trying to be perfect and trying to break that pattern and capitalize on that break? Because those are very different trading strategies. VWAP is being taken out here. By the way, all these little moments that I'm like ranting about, I'm making notes of these, and we're gonna make shorts on them once I have a few saved up. No change here. Same exact trade plan we've had for the past 3 days. You are failing to break out of the micro pullback structure. It is rotating downward. Like I said earlier, you watch the extreme levels. So here's one of the extreme levels, the value low. Your target at 80 has been hit. Good morning, crypto. Good morning, eBay. Good morning, Jose. Aggro, you'd have to watch my volume profile and order flow videos in the Apex series. That's too long of an answer. A lot of bearish delta coming in here, minus 3,500, basically just following that same trade plan. Like I said earlier, you failed the back test of the 24, back test of the daily VWAP. You're back in that lower rotation here. Well, that's why I always talk about partial profits when you're taking rotations. You should almost always have partial profits when you're rotating. Because of that exact reason, the POC and VWAP are very, very strong levels. So when you're trying to rotate through those very strong levels, it is extremely common that those levels can stall out the trade. So when you know that that is very common, you need to prepare for that and take profit. Good morning, Michael. Immediately failing that back test of the session VWAP here. I wouldn't quite call that a bear flag. Obviously, it's just a very small pullback. But same mentality where it lost it, retested it, and then sold it. So finishing the rotations down here. So rotation of today is complete, obviously. Rotation of yesterday is complete. Will it rotate Monday? That goes down pretty far, back to 58. And that's the problem with inside days is sometimes their value levels are pretty far apart. And you kind of have to monitor all the value levels that you're inside of, basically in the last couple of days. Speaking of 5-minute highs, the 5-minute highs are being protected pretty aggressively today. Basically, every single 5-minute high has been held. Protecting that ADMA now as well. So very aggressive on the rotation. Still very bottom heavy, but you are losing a little bit of value. You had a bunch of value around 75. You don't have a ton just yet on this new push, which is okay. You're kind of building an LVN. So our value from today, value from yesterday taken out. We have the value from Monday and the overnight low coming up. So 58 and 53. You want to mark? Keep an eye on the single prints, possibly back to 75. Very early to say. Still have 20 minutes, but just watch it. And this is the problem that we talked about the past couple of days with the multiple P shapes back to back, leaving open weak lower tails. I talked about it in the trade plan as well. But the weak lower tails can kind of act like a magnet. If they really cannot find higher value, you can see those very quick sell-offs into those lower tails. This could also be partially due to the big shift in the rate cut. It was looking at 20% for the next meeting. Now it's down to like what I say earlier, like 5% or something like that. Keep an eye on this lower tail being tested from Monday. So retrace on all that value has been completed. If you guys remember, I think it was September, not of last year, but the year before, I believe it was. And we had like 6 E shapes back to back to back to back. And then we had that like 1 day or 1 or 2 days that just wiped all of them out. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. When you have those lower tails just going untested over and over and over again. And then you have that dramatic sell-off that kind of squeezes those tails out. But yeah, I think it was 2024, I believe. Somewhere around there. Most likely going to have single prints unless they have a very strong bounce here. You're still only halfway through that candle. 5-minute highs being protected, ADMA being aggressively protected. This all started from that absorption that we talked about right out of the gate. You had that absorption. They tried to find higher value. They just could not do it. Turn into a sweep. Then it went into a rotation. Now you're just turning into a squeeze where it finished the rotation, but it's still going. Good morning, Fable. Yeah, the problem with longing these value lows is it's extremely aggressive. You really got to be careful doing that. It's exactly what I said earlier. Earlier I said I'm not a limit trader. I don't like to put my limit trades on the value low just to basically blindly trade it. You have to see that little bit of confirmation, right? We talked about that earlier with the value high, how you did have the confirmation on the value high because of, once again, that that absorption turning into a sweep. So think about the value levels the same way I think about like the point of origin levels, where they are a zone that you want to be looking for trades. It is not a blindly, it's not a blind trade area where you're just like throwing a trade out there. It's just telling you to wake up and look for a trade in that area, but you still need to have a setup like a sweep or a rollover or an absorption or whatever your setups are. Very quick node being built up there at 53. Damn near the POC already. Yeah, the only days that I would like blindly throw limits out there is if it was like an absolutely textbook bell curve and you've already seen it react to the value levels like to the tick already. But even then, it's like, I don't know, just wait like 30 seconds, wait 2 minutes. And see if you can get some kind of reaction from the delta or from the 30-minute candles, from the 5-minute highs and lows, whatever. The only reason to consistently use limit orders like that is because you have FOMO. You have that fear of missing the trade. So instead of waiting for a little bit of confirmation, you're just blindly trading the value levels. And that is usually not going to end well. This also goes back to what I was saying earlier in the stream about how if you do trade in the way of trying to look for that one time that it breaks that pattern, it can be highly profitable, but it's obviously, you're like a sniper. You have to find that exact entry point. This is one of those scenarios where we've been stuck in the same pattern for 3 days, and now it's finally breaking that pattern. And look at how aggressive it is. This is the exact scenario that I was talking about earlier. And you normally want to be in one of those worlds, not both of those worlds, right? You want to either try to stay with the statistical odds and like trade with what the pattern is showing you, stick to the trend, stick to the pattern, whatever. Or you want to try to be more of a kind of heavy reversal trader where you're looking for that clear break of that pattern. I lean more into the reversal side where I'm looking for that shift in momentum, like I talk about with the Momo and the indicators, the pivots, all that stuff, the rollover tops, etc., etc. Five-minute highs still being protected. A lot of buyers at 40 here. This is going to be one of the largest single print zones we have seen in a long time if they do not repair this candle back to 75 in about 8 minutes. Yeah, most of the time, once you have your confirmation, you can go ahead and use market orders, yeah. Yeah, exactly, Titus. So, like, certain markets, you want to be limit trading because the fees are different. The fees are not different on ES, and most futures, the fees are the same, whether you take limits or you take markets. Crypto has a market-making fee structure where if you're providing liquidity, you are most of the time not paying very high fees, or you're sometimes being paid fees, even if it's very tiny. But if you're market, if you're taking liquidity, then you are paying fees. There wasn't CPI today, I don't think. I think CPI is tomorrow, isn't it? Or no, not tomorrow, Friday. Today we had hourly earnings, non-farm employment, and unemployment rate. I didn't see the CPI data. CPI is Friday, yeah. Yeah, this is almost identical to what we talked about with the P-shaped tails. So this is a big problem. Leaving open these P-shaped tails like this. This is a problem. This is a problem. When you have these back-to-back P-shaped profiles, you have to continue this uptrend, right? Because the second you show a lack of value and it rolls over, extremely weak, extremely weak. So the targets are very obvious. This is pretty much the definition of a look above and fail, where you tried to find higher value right above the prior levels like 7K, and then you just got absorbed and nuked. This is a big problem on the morning. This little node right here, because you failed the higher value and then instantly built lower value here. Now, at the time, like we said, you didn't really know it was just a rotation, right? So you were still bearish, you just weren't extremely bearish. But once it started blowing through all those extreme levels, the value low of today, value low of yesterday, value low of the prior day, then you have the overnight low. Once it starts just blowing through those levels, then obviously it's very bearish. I mean, look at the 5-minute highs, look at the ADMA. The ADMA is the teal line here, the very aggressive EMA. You're not even closing a single 1-minute candle above that EMA. Look at how clean the 5-minute highs are. Not even being tested. This right here is the definition of one time framing. Every candle is breaking the prior low without testing the prior high. And when you look at a chart like that, how the hell do you buy, right? Like, it's extremely hard to be a buyer, because what we were talking about earlier with the pattern break, you're looking for something to happen that has not happened in like 10 candles, right? Yeah, even the bodies aren't even overlapping exactly, yeah. If I had to guess, this is mostly the reaction to the big drop in the rate cut possibility. Going from 20% down to 5%, definitely not a good sign there. Here comes that 30-minute close. It's going to be a very large single print zone, one of the largest zones we've seen in quite a while. Now, with that pattern that we've seen recently, these single prints are filled in almost with a certainty within 1 day, so within like 24 hours, right? So they're filled in either on the same day or the following day. As we saw yesterday, you had single prints here filled in nearly perfectly. And you can see we're just not leaving open massive single print zones recently. We're leaving open like maybe 3 to 4 tops. So based on that information, very likely that most of these single prints should be filled in before the end of today. If they are not, they are possibly going to be targeted tomorrow. Good morning, Chad. These levels were from the past couple of days, so that'd be from the 9th. The single prints are from today. You can see them highlighted yellow right here. They're already being filled in. They go back to 75. So we are seeing immediate buy pressure filling in at least the lower portion of these single prints. Keep an eye on these responsive levels here, starting to test those 5-minute highs, starting to test those 24 EMAs as well. Running out of steam so far on that most recent node. Very strong node at 54. You can see it's selling it immediately. Still filling in those single prints. Keep an eye on VWAP. It lines up with most of the single prints. Let me see here. It's nearly exact. So if they hit VWAP here, you'll fill in most of them. They're really struggling on this node right here. There's a node at 54 that keeps holding you down. You can see a lot of sellers at 52 as well. They're fighting over that node so much, in fact, it has moved the POC to that node. you have that kind of bear flag rollover here. It's not hitting VWAP, but you still have that structure failing to stay above that 54 node. Where is that? It looks like it's an overlapping level. Yeah, that is the that's actually the overlapping value low. So we have value low, back testing it. You have all that value coming in and still looking for that lower tail as long as you stay below that 58 to 55 area. It's actually, funny enough, almost exactly our trade plan level. What is that level? Yeah, it's 54. Our trade plan level is 55. So as long as you stay below that node, it's looking pretty bearish. Okay, finally starting to push above that node here, going towards VWAP. Keep an eye on VWAP at 67 to 71. On NASDAQ, it's 252 to 270. That's going to line up pretty much perfectly with those single prints if it does continue. Not only that, it is recovering that level that we just talked about. So if it holds above those value lows, it goes right back into rotation. nearly wiped out that first lower tail. We still have that very long lower tail from Friday. And this is that same thing we talked about earlier with the single print pattern. Very high likelihood they will mostly be filled in today. If not today, then tomorrow. But it looks like they will fill them in today. There's only about 5 left. Here's VWAP on NASDAQ. Still have a few single prints remaining, though. You have 5 single prints remaining, going back to 75 here. Value starting to slow down a little bit into VWAP. Hitting VWAP pretty much perfectly on NQ here. Still struggling here on that daily VWAP. It needs one more push up, finish those 4 remaining single prints. Still holding on to the ADMA for now, so it's not giving up just yet. Well, it's already a bear flag in a VWAP. So, like, if you were trading this as a bear flag in a VWAP, you would have already been in the trade. So basically, like, once it started to curl over, you see that sell pressure on VWAP. That is the trade. So, like, NASDAQ, basically right around 10:55 to, I'd say, 11 o'clock. That's kind of that window and where you need to determine if you want to take this as a bear flag in a VWAP or not. Once you start pushing down, so like 11:02 and 11:02 on both of them, that's kind of where the trade is already starting to confirm. It's starting to play out. So basically, before 11:02 is where you needed to decide if you wanted to take that as a bear flag. And then it goes into the exact same thing that we always say. Your stop loss is obviously above VWAP. You're targeting the prior low. So you have the prior low here that could be a target somewhere around this general area. Or the prior low here that could be a target. That'd be a bit more aggressive. So I'd consider like this area the conservative target. And then this would be like the aggressive target. The mistake that a lot of people make is they would enter the trade basically right where it is now. So they're like, okay, now it's a bear flag into VWAP. Let me enter here. And now their stop loss is terrible. It's so far away. And their target is damn near like a 1-to-1, maybe even lower than a 1-to-1 from their late entry. Now, obviously, if it's a very strong bear flag in the VWAP and it has that one smooth motion down, these late entries can still work. But in the grand scheme of things, you're risking so much more than you need to because you're getting in so late. That's why I say, like right here, when it started to impulse down, that's that trade finally telling you that it's working. So if you want to take that trade, it has to be before that impulse starts. So somewhere around those choppy candles right there. Yeah, same thing I always talk about with the VWAP trades. There's no difference there. Yeah, Delta going down on VWAP, just failing to find any value whatsoever above VWAP. The nodes are very sticky below VWAP. Yeah, the same is basically true for pretty much all the patterns that I teach. Once you see that impulse, that is not like confirmation in the sense of if you're waiting for an entry, that is the entry. That's confirmation in the sense of if you're already in your entry, you were right. That is telling you that you were right, right? That's that sell pressure coming in to confirm that you were right. If you're taking that as like, oh, now I can enter the trade, I mean, as you can see here, that doesn't look like a lot. That's a 10-point difference. So if you enter before the impulse and you enter after the impulse, your stop loss is 10 points worse. And 10 points, that's a whole trade. So you've given up a whole trade because you were not trusting the pattern. And that just comes with time, right? You have to build that trust over time by seeing it play out over and over and over again. And having that hard data, the stats in your journal or whatever. To see like, hey, I trade bear flags in a VWAP 100 times and I've won 60 of them or 70 of them, then I should probably trust that trade, right? There is no exact trigger with the bear flag and the VWAP in every single trade. The trigger is the fact that there is not a trigger. And I'm not trying to give you a riddle here. What I'm saying is the fact that the buyers are not just blowing through VWAP and the fact that there's no buyer node above VWAP or even in this case into VWAP, that is the trigger. The fact that the candle is rolling over, the candles are showing that pressure is the trigger. It's more so on NASDAQ. NASDAQ showing the lower highs. Now this is very bad for that trade. Because what do we always say? One smooth motion. Now this is obviously not one smooth motion anymore. It's breaking that. Now is the trade dead? No. But it doesn't look very good anymore. Is it a single tick failure? Well, I don't have mine on a single tick setting. So technically it's a double tick failure. I'm currently on a 2-tick chart. Because it's just too damn fast for a single tick. I could even go to like 1 point probably. Yeah, that's what makes the bear flag and the VWAP trade scary. It is a very good trade, but it's a scary trade. Because you're not going to get that clear confirmation every single time. It's not a pattern like the rollover top. The rollover top is very obvious because it gives you the same thing over and over and over again. You have the initial high, you have the sweeping high, and then you have the lower high. So where you enter is always the same. You always enter on the lower high. It's that easy, right? It's like you're not trying to fight a bunch of different signals. That is the signal. The lower high is the signal. But with the bear flag and the VWAP, there's a bunch of different scenarios. It could have a trap. It could have a big wick through VWAP. You could have lower highs like you do on NASDAQ. You could have like a rollover, a bunch of stuff, right? But the key thing with the bear flag and the VWAP is, like I said, the lack of a signal is a signal. So the fact that the buyers are completely running out of delta and they're not building a node above VWAP, that is the signal most of the time. Now, obviously, this is turning into a bad variation because the bad variation is when you continue to put in higher lows. So this one gave you, and once again, as I just talked about this is why you have to enter before the impulse. Because if you entered after the impulse, this higher low would absolutely run you over. So if you waited for the impulse and you entered, you instantly lose the trade. But if you trust VWAP and you enter around VWAP, then you get the impulse. The impulse back up is only breaking even. And honestly, this gave you 10 points. So anybody that's targeting something less than 10 points, most scalpers, right? You're possibly even out of that trade or partially out of the trade. Now, if you're trading it properly and you're looking for the actual, the setups that happen at a high strike rate, or sorry, the targets that happen at a high strike rate, it would have been here and it would have been here. So yes, if you were taking the absolutely most conservative exit, like the highs of these candles here, then you could have gotten out. But if you were looking for like the conservative target here, the aggressive target here, you're obviously not getting that. But yeah, that right there, I'm actually glad that happened. Even though it's kind of breaking the trade. I'm glad that happened because I can show you exactly what I was talking about earlier when I said you cannot wait for impulses to get in. Because the impulse is telling you that you were right. You're not right now. You were right before. So now this is where the trade gets difficult, which I talk about in my VWAP videos. If you lowered your stop loss to break even, this would be stopping you out, right? If you left your stop loss where it was and you like having that protection of VWAP, you are still in the trade. Now, which is the right thing to do, I can't tell you. There's not like a high strike rate on either one of those. It's really kind of up to the scenario. I can't tell you there's an absolutely one right way to do it. Yeah, that's another great reason for it to be a bad variation. Is the POC is so close that if you take that bear flag in a VWAP and it bounces off that POC, which is almost exactly what it did, it's going to kill your trade. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I completely forgot to do the recap yesterday. I was trying to do them every Tuesday. Completely forgot. So I might do the recap today or tomorrow. Completely slipped my mind. Yeah, honestly, today might be a really good day to recap, so it's actually good that I didn't do it yesterday. It shouldn't be any different. Should be around 70 or 66. Yeah, it's exactly the same. Yeah, mine are exactly the same. Exactly, ordinary, yes, and that is a good point. So, what I was saying earlier about whether you leave your stop at break even or leave it above VWAP, that does change based on if you take partial profit, yes. So if you took partial profit for that 10 points, then absolutely you should not be allowing that to come back to full stop. And if you do not take partial profit, probably even more so in that case, you want to be tightening up your stop loss as well. 10 points is, right now in this market, is a pretty small move. because you can move so damn quickly. So whether or not a lot of people are taking profit there for 5-10 points, it's hard to say because that literally happened in like 2 minutes. So if people lowered their size dramatically because of the volatility, then 10 points might be like nothing. That might be like 2 points in the old volatility, right? So whether or not they're going to take that as profit, who knows? For example, like if your normal trades right now, because of the volatility, are going for like 30 points. By the way, keep it on the single prints. We've got 2 remaining. If the normal trade that you're taking right now is going for 30, 40 points, whatever, because of how wide the volatility is, then if you see a move for 5 or 10 points, you're probably not going to be adjusting your stop losses. That's not really a big deal. So it really depends. But yes, I do agree with you. In a normal market, if you were up 10 points and then you let it come back to full stop, that's pretty bad. And here is that pattern that we talked about earlier, the extremely high likelihood of the single prints being filled in today or tomorrow. They obviously chose today. The single print strike rate recently, with it being filled in within the next 30-minute candle or the candle after, is ridiculously high. So first attempt to the bear flag in the VWAP, I would say, is over, right? You still have a second attempt. This could turn into a trap. So keep an eye on that. If it fills in the single print, and then that was all it was doing, and then you have a bunch of sell pressure coming in, you can still go back down. Now, the scenario for the buyers looks a lot better. If they can hold above VWAP, better in the sense of like they have a lot to go. They have a lot of potential profit. If they hold above VWAP here, look at where they are. They have plenty of rotation left. So back to the POC around the 90s, back to 7,000. That's if they can stay above VWAP here. They're doing their favorite thing here where they leave open 1 or 2 single prints. This is that potential trap that I was talking about. And this is exactly what we talk about with single prints, how you don't know if that buy pressure or sell pressure leading into single prints is real, or if they are just trying to fill in those single prints. So this time around, you hit those single prints damn near to the tick. You didn't fill in the last one by like a point. And then now our sell pressure is coming in, so far it seems like it was just a single print fill-in. This is that second attempt on a bear flag in a VWAP. First attempt gave you about 10 points and then put in a higher low and killed the trade. This one has already dropped 10 points from the session VWAP, so it's about that same level. This is where the higher low would be if it wants to maintain that trend. No lower low just yet. You're kind of sitting on an equal low. If it does bounce up, keep an eye on where that lower high would be. It'd be kind of around like here. So as long as they stay below VWAP, essentially, it will be a lower high. But all right, guys, we're coming to that time here, so we're going to start closing the stream up. I will be streaming for the rest of the day in Discord, as always. If you guys are not in Discord, I will see you guys tomorrow morning. We're at 92 likes. If you guys get that to 100, we'll do a little giveaway here for a Apex account. Which, by the way, Apex is still 80% off if you guys use code BREW. Be sure to hold on to those receipts. Any receipts that you use code BREW for in February. We will be doing that raffle at the end of the month. Same raffle we did in January, and same raffle we're going to be doing pretty much every single month this year. So how the raffle works is you get a ticket per 50K account size. So if it's 100K, you get 2 tickets, so on and so forth. You guys can do the math. We're giving away Discord access and cash prizes. If you're already a Discord member, you can still participate. I will just extend your access if you do win the raffle. And Discord obviously comes with all the indicators and the tutoring and all that stuff. You get access to everything like you would if you were a normal Discord member. If you guys are heading out before the raffle, enjoy the rest of your day. I will see you guys tomorrow. I'll be on the lookout for VWAP here. If it stays below VWAP, you are still a bear flag in the VWAP, possibly continuing back to low of day. If it holds above VWAP, you're not only holding above that, you're also holding above the value lows. So it could be rotating back to those value highs. So keep an eye on that. We are over 100. Let me go ahead and get that giveaway ready. I appreciate you guys liking the stream. If you guys are new here, be sure to subscribe. I do have a ton of content on YouTube you guys can check out. If you're brand new to the stream, watch that Becoming an Apex Trader series. I made that with the new viewers in mind so you guys can keep up with all the weird stuff that I talk about on the stream. All right, you guys know the deal. Pick a number between 1 and 50. Only pick one number. Have your emails ready. Make sure to press that live button. Make sure you are up to date on the stream. I don't want to sit around waiting for you for 5 minutes. Press that live button. Only pick one number. I will double check your chat history. If you have more than one number, I will just ban you. I'll give you guys another minute or so. Don't worry about a tie. I will do a tiebreaker if you guys have the same number as somebody else. Hey, Angela, have a good day, man. If you're still heading out. If you guys are heading out, I appreciate you being here. By the way, guys, if you guys are completely new to the Apex code, if you just now started using it, be sure to send me an email and I can get you guys added to the indicators. I give you guys 60 days access to the Momo, the OTS, and the bots as well. So if you guys need access to that stuff, just send me your most recent receipt that you use code BREW for, and I will get you added. Here is my email if you need it. Just make sure to send me the recent receipt and your TradingView username. I cannot give you access if I don't have your username. I'll give you guys about 15 more seconds. Yeah, no problem, Angela. Make sure to have your email ready. Press that live button. Make sure you have no delay. All right, good luck, guys. The first roll, the last number I see is from Future Trader. Number is 23. Let me know if you put 23. I will double check your chat history. I do see a 23. Are you still here, Scott? Is there anybody else I'm missing? Let me know if you put 23. I will double check. I only see Scott, I believe. I think it's just you, Scott. If there's anybody else, I'll give you like 10 more seconds. Let me know. But I think, Scott, I think it's just you. All right, Scott, I think it's just you. Here is my email. Go ahead and send me an email. Let me know what your YouTube name is. I'm going to send you a random number to post in chat. And by the way, I just wanted to say thank you to Apex. They've been giving me accounts to give away on stream. I appreciate that a lot. They're a great company. I could not do these giveaways if they weren't gracious enough to give me some codes. So I appreciate that. It's cool they help out the small streamers, right? Because there's plenty of accounts out there that are much larger than me. Let me know when you send the email, Scott. I'll take a look. You sent it, awesome. Let me take a look here. All right, I'm going to send you a random number. Just confirm that in chat, and you're good to go. The next thing you'll be seeing from me is the promo code. Then you just go sign up for any account like you normally would, and then put that promo code in. Just be careful, it will start charging you after that first month. So be sure to go back to the brew code if you don't pass it on the first month. Awesome, I see you, Scott. So be on the lookout for that promo code here in a bit. But all right, guys, like I said, keep an eye on VWAP. If it stays above VWAP, you are still rotating. You're rotating back into the value high, which currently is around the 80s. You have like 84 to 90, and then you have that 7,000 level. If it does not stay above VWAP and it continues to fail it, then it's looking pretty bad because you are losing not only today's, what it was today's value low, not anymore. So today's original value low, yesterday's low of day, and the value low of Monday. So very, very key level at the 55 to 50 area. So if you stay below that, looking very weak. But all right, guys, I'll see you in Discord. If you're not in Discord, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace, everybody.